Hey guys, I'm on. Appreciate the share.
You hear us now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Cool. We can remute. Yeah, that's fine. On Zoom, so if you two are ready, we might see if
I'm
Commissioner,
muted, we're recording, we're live.
okay, Commissioner Coots, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, we're good.
Yes,
It gave me an error, but it's okay.
okay, and
But now it's clicking, it's going around.
okay,
We
it
sure-
sounds
we good.
like we
We
are
are good.
recording, so if you want to go ahead and get us started, take it away. Do you want me to
Alright.
pull up the agenda or anything?
No, it's a pretty simple agenda. I mean, our business meeting agenda has one item on it. It's the Dover Hills that we continued from our last meeting. So if you want to update us there, and then we can go into other business once you're done.
Great, yeah, let me, maybe even just for my reference, I will pull up the agenda and just give a quick update.
While Andy does that, it will keep our formalities and welcome you to, this is the work session for the Cottonwood Heights Planning Commission for this Wednesday, January 5th.
Okay, here we go. So we have two items on the agenda. The first one is the Dover Hill PUD subdivision, which was continued from the December meeting. You all should have received an email, as well as what was included with the packet, which is the staff's recommendation to continue it to our next meeting. Essentially, Ivory Homes is still working on updates. We gave them a list of all of our notes from the last meeting, and I think those may have been included in the packet. And they have done some work, but you know, with the holidays, oh, sorry, this is the wrong, I guess that was in the email. With the holidays, they had staff out of the office, and so it just needed a little extra time. So they are still working on that. They've received all of our notes, the comments. And so that
And so we have commitment that they will be prepared for the 19th. Do we know?
That is their request as well as the staff's. I haven't been working on it directly, and apologies on behalf of Mike Johnson, he's sick, so he can be here today, but, they were pushing. They had initially wanted to be prepared for this meeting, so I know that they are making progress on it. And so we expect to have updates soon. So
just housekeeping, I think we need a motion to deal with it in this meeting and then continue it to the next meeting.
right, yes. In the next meeting, we'll want a motion to continue. And then moving on to the second item, if that's okay, we have an update on the Mid-Valley Active Transportation Plan. So this was introduced, I think, in October to the Planning Commission, had good conversation, a lot of comments, a lot of support for the plan overall. We just had, generally speaking, recommendations from the commissioners to make sure that all of the master plans were all coordinated and had the same information. And so since that just October meeting, our consultants have made some changes and updates so that the plan will be consistent with our Parks, Trails, and Open Space Plan. And we have Thomas McMurtry on Zoom from Avenue Consultants. He has joined with us. So if you like, I think he's prepared to give a brief presentation. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. All right, go ahead, Thomas.
Sure, yeah. So let me share my screen. And then I've got a PowerPoint. A lot of this, are you guys seeing this now? Hopefully you are seeing a presentation. So a lot of this content is the same content that you guys kind of saw before, and so I can kind of go over it quickly, but just to kind of remind you that we worked on a large Mid-Valley active transportation plan that included these 6 cities. So it was Cottonwood Heights, but also included Holiday, Midvale, Mill Creek, Murray, and Taylorsville. The idea behind it was to just try to have a more coordinated effort as we plan for active transportation routes, trails, and bike lanes across municipalities, and also to make sure that UDOT, UTA, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and some of your regional partners are involved as well. And then part of that was we also wanted to see if we could, do this jointly so that, cities, that project could be funded maybe a little bit easier or differently, right? Whether it be through grants or that cities are just kind of coordinated. And so this was just a list of all the folks involved as we went. One notable thing here in Cottonwood Heights is that, when we started, Matt Taylor was kind of the Cottonwood Heights representative who was helping to coordinate and lead a lot of the stuff from your city. And then as he left, Andy stepped up and was really involved in a lot of the things that we did. I'm going to skip over some of the early stuff. It was a long process of, developing a unified plan altogether. This was our vision and our goals, and we went through a whole exercise to develop that. So we were all kind of coordinated. The vision is, working together for a connected active transportation system for all ages and abilities. We use the individual goals, by the way, to help us rank and prioritize and develop a priority list of all of the projects that people kind of came up with. And I'll get to projects here pretty quickly, so we don't have to go over a lot of this stuff. This is existing conditions. We went through a lot of that. Here's all 6 cities and the existing infrastructure that's out there today. And then we looked at all kinds of stuff, like this is Strava bicycle and pedestrian activity that exists kind of out in the valley, and just kind of tracking where people are. One thing that was important and was that it was very clear that there are a lot of active transportation users from the data that we had access to and that we could collect, including we collected data from every single traffic signal in the valley. So anytime that a pedestrian pushes the button to use a crosswalk, we collect that data, the signal does, and we were able to extract that and look at it all. And so that was pretty telling to see where there were higher concentrations of pets. This is Strava, which is from an app that people use, and you can see where there's higher concentrations of like bike trips and those type of things. So anyway, that was all really kind of helpful. We did a bike tour, and you can see Matt, again, no longer with the city, but kind of there front and center. We went around and looked at a bunch of different bike facilities. I've got a video of the tour, but we don't have to watch that. And the idea was to try to help us plan for the best facilities that exist out there, including, bike lanes or buffered bike lanes protected, or like curb separated bike lanes, trails, and even on our smaller streets that we are, do appropriate, neighborhood byways or share rows, or just make sure that we, are signing and striping things appropriately throughout. So we went on a bike tour and looked at all this infrastructure that exists, and then kind of planned for it. We did a big brainstorm with all the different people in all the different cities. And this is just a little video clip from one of the brainstorm events where we got together, and looked at maps and kind of drew out different ideas that we'd like to see and projects. And Cottonwood Heights table is kind of back here. And the outcome of that, I jumped ahead, is this map that you see. So this is the actual map that we generated from that meeting. But then we also invited the public and anybody who wants to like tell us anything and draw things. And we did that with an online map tool. And we got about 700 people that participated and like drew lines and gave us some information about where they would like to see important, connections and trails and those type of things. And then we went through a process of like, screening all the stuff and prioritizing it. We had over 1,000 different active transportation ideas across all 6 cities. And then, we worked through them all to come up with a list of projects that connected all the major connections that we needed, as well as kind of prioritized more important sections and routes. And then we went through a process of vetting those ideas back out with the public. This is some of the the information that we were able to gather. We did this through the tail end of 2020 and going into 2021. And so, the pandemic was going on, and we didn't yet have the vaccine when we started. And so we did most of this outreach online. So we did just a lot of like surveys and collected information online. I shared this with you guys last time. This to me was like some of the most poignant, information that we got from the public. We just asked, if your ideal walking and biking facility were available, how often would you use them? And the main results that you see right here on the center of the page, this is just the results in Cottonwood Heights. And so 46% of your residents said they would walk daily if the ideal facility was available, and then another 38% said they do it weekly, a couple times a week. And you can see biking again, 67% combined for daily and a couple times a week. So there's a real desire for folks to get out and to recreate, to walk and bike, and have those facilities available for those trips. And that was true throughout the valley, but particularly in Cottonwood Heights. I mean, your percentages were a little bit higher than some of the other cities. So this is our final map of projects, throughout the valley to kind of help get us to the active transportation network that we'd like to see. We prioritized a backbone, and the cities really wanted to say, well, give us like the most critical, like more like regional facilities and connections that were going to be really important. And so we came up with this as our like the backbone network of like, if we have this, at least we can kind of make connections and get around. But this is really the main thing. So this one slide right here, these are the recommended projects in Cottonwood Heights. These are what we've been working with Andy on. You'll notice there are several changes since the last time I presented this in October. Most notably, we added a project on Siesta to make sure that we've got a shoulder byway identified there. And then we upgraded Creek Road, where we had just a bike lane, and it still exists as showing kind of like a bike lane on this section of Creek Road. But we added a multi-use path kind of all along Creek Road. And then we also added a multi-use path on the north side of I-215, kind of along here through Holiday. I talked with Holiday City with Andy and Lenice Davenport at Holiday about that, and they showed me their ideas, and I just talked to UDOT about it. It doesn't impact the UDOT corridor, but it is within their right of way. And so anyway, we feel kind of good about the idea of getting that map or that project on a map as well. So so this is like the final list or map of projects. A couple of other things I wanted to point out, and I'll talk about this in a second, is the website. I think you guys have access to this website and can see it. If you do go to the website, and I can expand my browser here, the website's got several different pages, and you can click through and you can zoom in and look at the draft project list. But you can click on Cottonwood Heights or go to the tab at the top, and it has your final report. And the final report, which we're still making a couple edits on based on those things that we just talked about, but it's got the detailed maps that we just already showed you, as well as just all the information that we collected throughout. But I wanted to point out at the end, so chapter 8 has an implementation and funding section where we went through the maps, and we came up with the project list that matches the map, and we have associated costs with them. So you can kind of see what would be like a ballpark cost. These are average costs in today's dollars of what these facility improvements would be. And then we go into a section on funding. And so we really wanted to kind of give cities some tools to try to get some of these things built, and just so to identify funding sources that are available to you guys for constructing some of these projects. And so that's all in there in chapter 8. And then with the funding stuff, the governor's office of Planning and Budget just came out with their recommended budget to the legislature. And last year, the legislature gave a one-time $32 million to active transportation projects across the state. They were looking for shovel-ready projects. They required them to be on a master plan. They had some other requirements as well. They were looking for a 20% match, but I think they forgave that for last year's one-time $32 million. The governor's budget includes $46 million for this year. So we'll have to see what the legislature does, but it's an increase. And again, it's not a revolving fund, but it's a one-time $46 million that the governor is looking to spend on active transportation.
Hey, Thomas,
Yeah.
in regard to that, once it gets through, now has to go through us from the planning commission to the city council. Once you get approval from each individual city, does that then enact the plan?
Well, the way we come up with the 6 city plans are each of them are individual. And so it is our hope that all 6 cities, adopt these plans and they then become the active transportation plan for that city. But you guys are not beholden to like Murray to adopt theirs. Midvale already has, for example. I presented to Holiday City Council, but they didn't take a vote on adoption. Yet Mill Creek is working through theirs a little bit, but you guys, it's your plan. So, this was funded by the Wasatch Front Regional Council, but it's their hope that each of the cities will just kind of adopt their plans on their own. You don't need any other city to do so. But once you do adopt it, then you guys have a documented plan, and you've got the PDF, you've got the list, you've got the project map, and you can kind of, start to kind of work towards getting some of these projects built.
Thank you.
Which also means applying for grant money, which we can't even do. We don't have a plan, right?
That's exactly right. Yes. In fact, Holiday City called me like 2-3 months ago because they wanted to. 33rd South is on the project list, as well as 39th South, and 33rd South is up here. It's project 177. 39th South is project 1, and they Wasatch Front approached them and said, "Hey, we have some money we'd like to put towards moving this project forward, but you guys haven't adopted your plan yet." And so they called me up and said, "Hey, maybe we can hurry up and do it." Ultimately, the council didn't do that, but that's okay. Wasatch Front money is available every single year, so you can always apply to get those funds. And so, and like I said, the state and UDOT is managing that money. So, for example, I mentioned the $32 million that was a one-time allocation last year from the legislature. Stephanie Tomlin at UDOT is who's personally managing those projects and that funds. She was a part of this entire process. She was on our bike tour. Her name is on the list. She knows about this plan and these projects, and she knows Andy. And you guys can always give her a call and say, "Hey, we want to get one of our projects on that list."
That's very helpful.
Why they didn't go all the way to 33rd South? Why they stopped at 39th?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Wasatch Boulevard, why doesn't it go all the way to 33rd?
Yeah, so Wasatch Boulevard, it only goes to the Mill Creek Canyon entrance, I believe.
So why is that?
Does it turn into Salt Lake City there?
No,
No, it's not. It's still Mill Creek City, and the truth is that I don't recall exactly. I don't remember.
I will tell you, if you pull up your Strava data, that section from 33rd to 39th is just as heavy as anything else, because at the top of 33rd, that's where you jut over, and then you can take the pedestrian walkway over to across I-80. So that for that 200-meter section. Just from a housekeeping standpoint, any cyclist is going to look at that, and that's going to be a glaring defect, and that's a small dollar item. So just from a housekeeping standpoint, I would add that.
Sure. So, by the way, talking about Wasatch Boulevard, Wasatch was a really, really kind of tricky corridor. We got a lot of feedback on it. We had several people that wanted us to take it off the list because they liked it the way it is. The way it is right now is we are showing bike lanes on the roadway and a trail on the east side, kind of like up against the hillside a little bit. There was a lot of competing interest there. The road cyclists, the mammals, the middle-aged men in Lycra, the people that are really want to go fast, prefer to be in the roadway, but there's a lot of people that want to be able to, like, I don't know, push a stroller or walk a dog or whatever, and they would prefer to have a trail. There's really tricky rights of way through there. We are showing both. And so what you saw there was the trail, and the trail it stops at 39th, but the bike lane extends not just to 33rd, but even beyond that, right? The idea of like the road cyclists want to be on the road. And so their facility continues up, not just stopping at 33rd, but it's the trail that we do show stopping at 39th. If that makes sense. So that facility will have, that road would have two, right? The bike lanes for the high speed on the road and a separated trail for, slower traffic. And it shows only the trail stopping at 39th, but the bike lanes extending up.
So Mike, just for FYI, if you're going between Immigration Canyon and the Draper Temple, that area has about a 6-inch shoulder right there. And it's probably one of the most hazardous spots to ride your road bike on that whole stretch. So, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of the road bikers and Commissioner Chapel, on behalf of the women in Lycra, I think would second that. I don't want to speak for you, Jessica.
That is true. I would. And that is a really critical area there where you do transition to the path that crosses I-80.
Yeah. And so again, so to be clear, we are showing, bike facilities on the corridor, and then we have a separated, trail south of 39th. So we are showing that for an improved bike facility there. And then ultimately all the way up until, it hits the city boundary and we kind of stop. But yeah, and that exists throughout all of Wasatch Boulevard down. And then we have a separated trail as well, from Cottonwood Heights to 39th.
And then through the gravel pit, this is all just perspective where it could potentially go.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, we don't know, exact alignments or, whatever is going to happen kind of through the gravel pit, right? And so, the idea is that at some point, get master planned or to change, facility type or whatever. And so, there's an opportunity to have a facility through there, however it ends up being planned.
That's good to show it. Remind me again, the green is the bike and the orange is the multi-use, is that right?
Yeah, in this particular map, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, this map is the island map, and I have a magic mouse, and every time I touch it, it moves. But the you can click on the facilities and they'll give you the information,
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Can you remind me what a neighborhood byway is? What's the difference in definition?
Yeah, a neighborhood byway is basically, you don't need to stripe a bike facility. The bike shares the same, space as the cars do, right? It's just in a neighborhood, but we do want to have, either a share or a sign at junctions or turns to kind of indicate that that's what's going on. Let me exit out of this and I can show you.
That's kind of the way Vine Street is as it goes through Murray.
That's exactly right. Right. Yep. And so, it's, you can have either a sign or the sharrows that kind of indicate that, hey, bikes and cars are, kind of sharing the same space through here. These are great for low speed facilities, something that's 25 or 30 miles an hour. This slide has photos and you can kind of see like up here, is just get a sharrow on a neighborhood street. And it just allows vehicles and cyclists to know you guys are kind of sharing the same speed.
There's some awareness there. Yeah.
So on our Cottonwood Heights map, like a top of the world drive by you, Commissioner Coots.
Yeah.
That was one that caught my attention.
Yeah, I saw all those too, and I just wanted to make sure I understood what that meant.
Yeah, the good news is those are you don't really need to do much besides, just either like put out a sign or just a stencil on the pavement to just let people know, hey, bikes could be here. And then allows, bicyclists to be, biking around the neighborhood and to kind of know, hey, we can use this neighborhood to kind of get around a little bit without having to jump out on, a busier street.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like you've pointed out to us the changes since last time we've seen this?
Yeah, again, so we've got a new trail on the north side of 215. We've got a new trail on Creek Road, and then Siesta Drive. We've got a shoulder byway there. So I think those are the main changes. I don't know, Andy, are there other little tweaks that we did? I don't think so.
I think on this version, you switched the color on the Fort Union. It was.
Oh, yeah, we were inconsistent there. So to be clear on Fort Union, it was our intention, and you go back to the project website. Let me make this bigger and jump back up. Is that and you go to the designs. Fort Union, actually, we did a design on it, and here it is. The idea there is to do a curb separated bike lane. I'm trying to space this a little bit better on my Mac. So it's more of a cycle track than like, a bike lane per se, because the idea would be to put a curb and a little bit of a buffer and then the bike lane, and to use kind of the shoulder space that exists on the road now to do that facility. You can do this without impacting any of the businesses or homes or property owners along the corridor, and you can have kind of a protected bike facility. And so it's probably most closely relates to like buffered bike lanes as opposed to a shared use path, even though it's kind of curb separated. The idea is that you have, an eastbound and a westbound on different sides of the street. So it's not just like one trail, but rather, you have like, a bike lane on the north side and a bike lane on the south side. Again, separated from cars completely so that it's safe. And so we just made the color to show that we called it, I think, a buffered bike lane. But it really is kind of a more of a cycle track facility where that it's separated.
So Mike, let me ask you this, does that image go all the way up to the interface with Wasatch Boulevard?
The design that we're looking at, I think, is just from 13th to 9th or 7th in Midvale.
That's right. It doesn't go all the way up here.
So the question maybe is for Andy is, how does that then tie into the Fort Union area master plan and those expanded sidewalks does it tie in?
Yes, yeah, this is consistent, and as we've worked on this project with Thomas and his team, that was in our minds the whole time. So the design, they chose to do the full design just for that segment of Fort Union, because this is kind of the busier area, the more commercial, and also the area that had more shoulder space to work with. So it's a little bit trickier once you get further up Fort Union, as you know from some of the projects that we've looked at recently. Needs to be included as part of frontage improvements with new developments.
Right.
Yes, that was our goal, is to be consistent with that plan as well as all of our other plans. So there's no real change other than we just felt that color, the buffered bike lane, more closely matched what we have on our plans.
And so the plan exists that it would carry all the way up Fort Union, but how that gets implemented still needs some thought. Is that am I hearing that correctly?
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Andy's right that, we wanted to kind of take a look at maybe a little bit of an easier section. The idea behind the concept plan that we included was that we just wanted to carve out like a little bit of our budget to go a little bit deeper from just a line on a map. And so, but we couldn't do much. Like there wasn't like a lot of budget to be designing all these projects. And so we just kind of took a look at this section, just knowing that this one would be either like cause more problems or more heartache or like impact people's properties. And so we just chose a section that wouldn't, be maybe a little bit easier to kind of like understand and take a look at.
It's really helpful.
Andy, as you compare this plan to the trails, parks, and open space plan that staff worked on, did this plan add more or that our previous plan didn't have, or does it align pretty closely, or did we have more? And how do they compare?
So I'll tell you, by the way, I was going to see, I think, so in this, I'm looking at the report here, I'm sorry, is, we pulled where is it? Oh, it's right here. So this is, here, I can make this big again. I'm just looking. This page in your report, page 21, references you guys had an existing bikes and trails master plan. So we started with that. We used that, and you guys were, I think, the only city that did have an existing plan. So you guys were like ahead of the game in terms of doing all this stuff. We used the entirety of this plan as a starting basis, and everything from this plan, like, it made it into our plan, except in the case of like facility upgrades or where we had an opportunity to like improve or enhance. But there was no idea that was mentioned in this existing, like your existing plan, that we didn't look at or incorporate. And the same thing is true for these other plans, right? There are other plans around the county. Wasatch Front has a plan. The county had a tip or an active transportation improvement plan. And so we went through all of those, but we absolutely included you guys' existing plan in when we started. And so all of those things were incorporated into our final project list.
It's great.
Yeah, to kind of add on that, I think that we had the bike and trails master plan, which is just showing already in place. We had for Union Plan and Wasatch Boulevard already in place.
Mhm.
Parks, trails, and open space plan was kind of going concurrently with this one. So
Mhm.
that's why we've had to make some changes and tweak a few things here towards the end. You know, we still may yet look to make sure that everything is still in there. But that was kind of, these both arrived to their own places organically, and now we're just trying to make sure that they match.
And where are we on adoption of the parks, trails, and open
So
space?
that's adopted.
That is adopted.
That has been officially adopted now, so. And then, you know, we're recommending tonight that as staff, we recommend, that you recommend approval to the city council. So with, you know, with both of these in place now, we feel like we're in a strong position to start achieving some of these goals.
Well, and clearly this is an enormous project. We talk about grant money and that kind of stuff. $33 million spread across all the County is not going to make a very big dent in this. Because our share of that is not, even if we got a big piece of that, that's not very much. But you take a bite at a time.
Sure.
And right now, we are not even sitting at the table. If I'm correct, if I'm hearing what you're saying, we can't even apply for grant money. We can't, it's not in a budget anywhere.
Well, we have, you know, thankfully, we have other plans that we've been working on. And
Right.
so we are, you know, still, have been working on some grants for some of this stuff that
Okay.
coincides with our other previous plans. But you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and these, as we always say, when we work on these master plans, these are very long-range plans. This is, you know, for our children and future generations. So you're not gonna see this tomorrow, but we're gonna, you know, now that what we have in place plus this, we're gonna make a big push to try to realize the vision.
Andy, let me ask you one other one, just with the Canyon Center. That little drive for people riding up Fort Union and then turning right onto Wasatch. Right, we talked a lot about the Canyon Center and, you know, the appeal and all that kind of stuff and stuff on the road. And just right now, the snow's been plowed, so it's kind of blocking the parking spots along the road. What if that became like a bike lane, which would also make it safer for EMS, and also, you know, a bike lane makes it a little harder for people to justify just parking along there. And there's only like 5 parking spaces right now. People aren't using them because the snow's taking up half the spaces, and the road seems way more sufficient to me without cars parked on that street. It also allows for the garbage removal and the other things we talked about in that particular development. It felt way more doable without the cars on the street when my wife and I drove through that the other night. I just to consider, and that would be a simple striping issue like that. Just as we kind of think about that section, that may be because that's our newest road in Cottonwood Heights.
Right.
That one we've got infinite control over. And if people realize that that's a good road and there's a bike lane, their ability to go up from Alpha and then to go diagonally that way and then to turn out on Wasatch. Right now, the right turn on Wasatch just dealing with UDOT and just, I mean, there's so many complicated things. And that's another one as a cyclist, it's super dangerous too, so.
Yeah. That's a, that brings up a good point, Dan. So Andy, once this is adopted, as things change or we see new opportunities, how do we go about making sure those get incorporated?
Well, I think it would just be an amendment to the plan. But, certainly something that we can do, we try to revisit master plans every, about 5 to 10 years. And so I think we want to add items in. I know that this is meant to be more of kind of a regional connection plan. And so, maybe specific streets we might just want to look at in future plans or future amendments, but I think that is a good suggestion.
Couldn't the bike and open space plan be amended?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
This is more regional and the other one's more local.
right, but yeah, that would probably be
More
the
appropriate.
better way if we want to make changes to like local streets or smaller connections, like what you've suggested.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as someone who kind of uses a lot of the pedestrian amenities around town, especially this part of town up towards the mountains, it's just there are so many missed opportunities that just with minor tweaks and not a lot of money, it's a much better multimodal experience versus just like trying to fight against cars and, missing sidewalks, missing striping.
Definitely, sure.
One thing that, by the way, I did West Jordan's active transportation plan in 2018, and since then, in the last 3 years, they've built 3 projects, and 2 of them were on the plan, but 1 wasn't. And that's totally okay too, right? They ended up striping a buffered bike lane on a facility between Jordan Landing and the airport that goes up to 6200 South. And they I don't know, they talked to me about it a little bit, and they just wanted to do it, and they had they were repaving it, and they just needed a little bit more striping funds, and they threw in like an extra $10,000 and they striped a buffered bike lane. And it was on the plan. They didn't need to go through an amendment process. They just kind of, did it. And that's okay too, right? You don't have to amend every little thing.
True. So Thomas, if you would, as we go into the business meeting, you'll get a chance to present this all over again, and there'll probably be more public participating, which is great. So if you would, focus on the changes in your process, and, so we can make it clear, what we're passing on here to the city council.
Sure.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, any other discussion to this item? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on and see it again in our business meeting. There is something, commissioners, that's not on our agenda, probably needs to be on our agenda for our next January meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but I think it's time to elect a new chair in January for the Planning Commission.
We just looked that up, and I believe that it's actually something that is supposed to happen in July. I don't know that we did that in July.
Well,
But
does July make sense when we have change of commissioners in June?
that's what's in the bylaws.
Okay.
I know, we might go to Shane. I know Shane's on the Zoom call, or, I'm happy to look into it, and we can do some research and get back to you at the next meeting.
When did we do this last time?
I don't remember. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I have to look it up too. It feels like at least a year to me, but maybe that's just because it hasn't been an easy year.
Or a year and a half.
It's probably been about that time.
I think it's been a year and a half.
It feels that way to me.
It was Commissioner Griffin before, and so it was just,
Well, and he left,
that
so
was not
we-
scheduled, right? He left the commission, and I think that we just missed it when we should have renewed in July. But we'll look at the bylaws and see what we can do, and it may
well,
be-
and if we did miss it, maybe this would be a good time to address it in our next meeting.
certainly. Yeah, I'll make a note to check on that.
And I'm glad to hear that it's not just me that feels like it's been an extra long time. It's an interesting seat to sit in, I have to say, for whoever takes it next. Any other items to discuss, commissioners?
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
I will second that.
Move seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. So we will reconvene in the business meeting at 6 p.m.
Sounds good.
See you then.